And our manager's not here. I'd like to call the Onslow County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for January 6, 2025 to order at this time. We will start with asking our Assistant County Manager, Mr. Ben Warren, to provide us with the invocation.
All right. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Lord, we thank you for the year that just passed and the many blessings you've showered upon us. As we make our resolutions for the year ahead, let us go forward with great hope that all things can be possible. Father, we pray for the men and women in our armed forces who serve our country with tremendous courage, commitment, and sacrifice. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. We will continue to thank you and praise you for the blessings you have bestowed upon us. Now, with a deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here today, join us in a moment of silence. Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to recognize the elected officials that are with us this morning. Mr. Rick Grant, Alderman from North Topsail Beach. Mr. Mayor Pete Perrin from Holly Ridge. Appreciate all of you being here, as well as Sheriff Chris Thomas and the Register of Deeds, Omega Jarman. Thank you for being here, and we will, I'll give you the remarks here in just a minute, but first we're going to go to item 1 and the adoption of our agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to add to the agenda Resolution 25-001, resolution to adopt Onslow County Comprehensive Systems.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
I'd also like to make a motion to add to a closed session to our meeting announcement, I guess, not really, agenda,
So
following our meeting today.
That would be for attorney-client privilege.
For attorney-client privileges, yes.
we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. And now we'll move to the motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. We have item number 2, items on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. As we move into public comment, I will ask that all in attendance please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during the meeting. Those comments should be limited to no more than 5 minutes and may be on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. In accordance with the board's adopted rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period on the agenda. Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Manager, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes, sir, we sure do. First up is Mr. Phil Work.
Good morning. By way of introduction, my name is Phil Work. I'm a 13-year resident of North Carolina in Sneads Ferry, a retired Navy pilot and retired FedEx pilot, and I'm a new member of the One Place Board of Directors. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General stated that pediatric mental health care is a defining public health crisis of our time. My kids are in their late 30s and early 40s. My youngest was just graduating from college when Apple introduced a smartphone. I frankly wouldn't want to be trying to parent a child or adolescent today when the absolute best And also the darkest of what exists in the world today is literally at the fingertips of any kid who has one of those. Kids, and certainly many kids in our area, also fall prey to other adverse childhood experiences that cause them physical and mental harm through the actions of family members, acquaintances, or even strangers. The need for protecting these kids is great, and I could give you many statistics, but you've already seen them, and my time is a little limited here. So let me talk about one place in Dawn Rochelle. I've known Dawn for about 5 years now. She was my Rotary District Governor when I was president of Sneads Ferry Rotary, and we worked closely together during COVID. Ms. Rochelle has made it her life's work to help traumatized and abused kids, and she and her staff have seen the worst of what can happen to these victims. She's highly trained and dedicated to her work. She could have gone to a number of other places and done better for herself and her family and perhaps been more appreciated, but she chose to stay here where her roots are and help the kids and families in Onslow County where the need is great. In 2017, she and her staff had a vision for a new home to meet the expanding need, and the Siku Hope Center was born. It is nearing completion, but due to factors that have affected many similar projects since COVID, costs have increased, as outlined in the letter you all received last week and heard about in both August and November, and approximately $2 million are needed to finish construction of this world-class facility for taking care of our kids. Now, again, I'm new to the game here, but I have heard numerous rumors about talk that Ms. Rochelle makes too much money, the building is too nice for Onslow County, and construction has been mismanaged. We could have lengthy discussions on each of these points, but again, my time is limited. I personally don't think the rumors are justified and also have difficulty understanding the reluctance to help, since about 90% of the funding for the construction has come from outside the county. Commissioners, I think you should be celebrating this building and the One Place vision. The new One Place will again be a world-class facility whose expanded service capability will have generational impact on kids and families in Onslow and surrounding counties. It will be a jewel in the Onslow County crown, a facility like few in the entire country. Healthy kids make healthy adults, so Onslow over time will become a better place to live and work. Besides, if One Place did not exist, the county would likely have spent as much as $10 to $15 million over the last 10 years to provide the services that One Place provides. Instead, the ask is for $2 million one time. Money invested here will have a much greater, though less visible, impact over time than monies invested to build perhaps the Y Pool or the Museum of the Marine. Embrace it. Why should we not have the best care for our at-risk kids, especially when they would not otherwise receive the same level of care as One Place offers, unless possibly traveling to Wilmington or Greenville? Often impossible for parents who struggle with simply day-to-day living. I urge you to give the funding needed to get the Siku Hope Center across the finish line as a generational investment in our county. I think you could eke out a pledge to do it over the next few years, and I hope you do. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning.
Thank you. Mr. Smithman?
Yes, sir. Next is Miss Ari Rakowitz.
Thank you again, Commissioners, for steps you've taken toward more inclusive community, and to staff for the impressive and important work you do guiding and supporting them. Again, you chose to serve a community where not all share your faith. Exercise respect for diversity among your constituency. The amount of time spent on tribute to a specific deity emphasizing a culturally appropriated holiday was inappropriate for a government meeting. Wishing constituents happy holidays and eliminating the prayer would have been much more inclusive. You have a right to freedom of religion, but a responsibility as both public servants and ambassadors for your faith to avoid using religion for harm. Unnecessary emphasis on differences, here faith, in public settings adds tension and encourages microaggressions that can escalate. Religion has been used for warmongering for millennia, and you don't have to contribute. Choose kindness and inclusion. Not all consider this a great place to live either, but many can only leave homeless. My parents are veterans who retired here. I begged them not to move back and was devastated when my grandparents moved here too. I love my family and forgive them for my unwanted life, but forgiveness is only one step in an amends-making process. Sorry only counts if you change your behavior. Change is hard, and rebuilding trust is a long, challenging road. Like my family and the world, and the people he just talked about, Team Onslow is processing multi-generational trauma in a constant state of ethical triage. But cruel prioritization, not scarcity of resources, is the problem. Today is the anniversary of an attempted insurrection at the nation's capital. While I am an atheist for peacefully dissolving nation-state borders and demilitarizing the global community, I'm here today for Team Onslow, even though the majority broke my heart yet again at the polls. Too many of y'all voted to put an insurrectionist who shouldn't even have been on the ballot back in power. While the County Board of Elections conducted the election as fairly and accurately as possible, the results show our system functioning as intended fails to effectively serve the people. Local NAACP President Euring reminds us service members swear to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The enemy is domestic, but Onslow County doesn't have to be a battleground. We can develop a more sustainable, just, and compassionate culture. The Poor People's Campaign views this as an era of reconstruction, and we can unify to support people experiencing poverty. But y'all want to fight to keep vape shops away from preschools and let gun ranges operate near them? Be better allies. If $17 for a wreath to honor the dead was not too much, support the living. Donate at least as much to the NAACP at Onslow, NAACP.org. Better yet, join the march at City Hall on January 20th at 9 a.m. and the branch as an active member. The Board of Elections work in a repurposed social services building, a poor fit for the current purpose on a dead-end road with increased heavy vehicle traffic and thus maintenance needs due to adding a fuel farm, but the county doesn't seem to plan to address this for at least 5 years. The building is located in Georgetown, the former segregated home of a thriving school for Black people that was bombed during the Civil Rights Movement. The plaque in front of privatized Onslow does not mention the bombing. This area was just rezoned without key infrastructural needs being addressed, including a lack of escape routes in emergencies due to the county and city passing responsibility back and forth. Public commenters remind you often this is not unique to Georgetown. It is particularly offensive, though, to erase its historical significance. We need truth and reconciliation. People experiencing homelessness and housing instability in Onslow County, regardless of personal circumstances, are on Team Onslow too. Revise policies and procedures to support poor people, not starve them into submission or death, and support people working equitably toward that goal. How much time have y'all spent walking or bicycling around the county lately? I'm not talking recreationally. Imagine walking and biking are your only means to conduct your business and feed your family here. Now imagine doing it without your phone or GPS. Whether people prefer more sustainable methods for ethical reasons or use them to survive, navigating this county by foot, bike, or public transportation is currently unsustainable, especially for people who want to eat ethically and healthily. Finding affordable, ethically sourced and supplied foods is a concern countywide. The county farmers market has very few food vendors, far too limited operating hours, and only one branch. I also have deep concerns about historical implications of a farmers market in a place called Tar Landing, when tarring was used as a punishment for enslaved persons, and flags from the losing side of the Civil War still fly at residences and businesses nearby. The community seems to be trying to write their responsibility for poor conditions out of local history without fixing them. Of course, I hope it's just my conspiracy-oriented thinking, but I doubt it enough that I'm standing here talking to you. Ensure policies, procedures, and implementation support, not harm the whole community, including children and migrant workers. Respect the pain your fellow human beings face. Focus comments on human needs and actions instead of microaggressions, religious or otherwise. Explain more how you will improve equitable access to quality services and how you decide beyond preserving the rural character. Evidence shows phrases like preserving the rural character have been used to perpetuate discriminatory culture. Respect people you serve by showing you do not or will no longer use it that way. Stop playing whose responsibility is it to fix lip service games.
Thank you. Mr. Smithman?
That was the last public speaker, sir.
All right, thank you. So we'll move right into item 4, public hearings. And Mr. Smitherman, we will go ahead and start by, I think, Carter. Mr. Metcalf will come up and begin the public hearing for us on the first one.
Good morning, Chairman and County Commissioners. Happy 2025. And with that, we're going to begin with Electronic Gaming, ARS, or Additional Required Standards Text Amendment, ZTA 2024 number 4. And the applicant is the Onslow County Planning and Development Department. So an overview of ZTA number 4 is a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance of Section 9.12, the Recreation and Entertainment Additional Required Standards, under subsection B for electronic gaming operations. The proposal is to amend the application requirements for an electronic gaming operations use. Now, what exactly amendment are we looking at? Here you can see that additional required standard previously stated that a letter of determination was to be submitted with the application from the Onslow County Sheriff's Office. And what that would determine would be the legality of them submitting the application to our office. Our proposal is to change that requirement from a letter from the Sheriff's Office, but one simply from the applicant. It would be at their burden of proof to provide that plan detailing their compliance with all applicable North Carolina general statute. The reasonableness and public interest for this is again, we're placing the burden of proof for legality back on an applicant and not on the Sheriff's Office, and reducing any potential conflict for our partners. We heard the item at November 7th at Planning Board. Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the text amendment. The applicant, which is the planning staff, was obviously present, and no citizen spoke against it, and nor any military impacts were presented. The chairman of the Planning Board had the following remarks for the item. The text amendment was unanimously approved by the board. This takes the burden of compliance off of the Sheriff's Department and places it rightfully on the applicant. So it is respectfully requested for the Onslow County Board of Commissioners to consider the proposed zoning text amendment of ZTA 2024 number 4 and adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. At this time, we will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone signed up, Mr. Smitherman?
No, sir, we do not.
Having none signed up, I'll make a call to the audience for anyone that would like to make a statement in regards to this item. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at this time and open the floor for discussion from the commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a question, Mr. Metcalf. I mean, it sounds really subjective to me, like, who's going to determine if the plan that is submitted is in compliance?
That's something that we would obviously get with Mr. DeSelms on to review that, as well as any sort of applicable individuals with the Sheriff's Office at that time.
Okay.
Is
So
that
when they
already covered under your contract, Mr. DeSelms?
Yes, it would be included, yes. Commissioner Bennett, the reason that this came up, and I think that the sheriff would be very happy with this change, is he was having folks come to him, asking him to essentially test their devices. And I don't know how much you follow this in the news, but they're always changing these devices or these gaming machines to try to stay one step ahead. And sheriff is very adamant that these gaming devices that are illegal, he's going to prosecute those because that they're a menace to our society. And so he was having a tough time with these folks going to him. So essentially the process now would require the applicant to say that they are going to comply with the law, and then we would see whether those what they believe is compliance actually fits what our belief is compliance, and go forward there. But it gets the sheriff out of the middle of it.
Okay, thank you.
And the sheriff, if I said anything incorrect, please correct me. Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So, Mr. Metcalf, come on back up.
Thank you, sir. So our next item before you is the Campground Additional Required Standards, or ARS Text Amendment Request, ZTA 2024 number 5, and the applicant's Onslow County Planning and Development Department. An overview of the proposed text amendment to section 9.12 for the Recreation and Entertainment Additional Required Standards, subsection A, is for the additional standards for campgrounds and campsites in the zoning ordinance. The proposed is to amend the requirements as it regards to installing accessory structures on the lot of a campground. So we take a look at that request. So campgrounds currently are regulated and have a myriad of additional required standards in the zoning ordinance, and we're not covering all of that right now. But simply, each one is limited to have 2 accessory structures on every lot. One would be an uncovered deck that could not be attached to the camper, and the other would be a shed or some sort of storage building. Previously, as you can see there on the screen, each item could be no larger than a 10 by 10. So each one essentially would be allowed 100 square foot. Simply what our text amendment is that each one was allowed to have 100 square feet. So we're saying for each lot, you would have a 200 square foot allowance, and you could have some give and take between the sizes of both of those. So for example, if you wanted to do an 8 by 8 shed, and so that would use up 64 square footage, the remainder of that you could use to build a larger deck. Or if you simply wanted to have a 200 square foot deck, you could, but you would not be able to have a shed unless your shed somehow was 0 square feet, and you accomplish that. So that would be the standard that we're proposing to implement both for a type 1 campground, which would be campgrounds that have 20 lots or less, as well as our tier 2, which would have 21 or more. It could be reasonable and in the public interest because it provides flexibility to those property owners of the campgrounds while still providing for safe and orderly development. Planning Board reviewed this at November 7th and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the text amendment. The applicant was present and no citizen spoke against the request at that time, and no military impacts were presented. So it is respectfully requested for the Onslow County Board of Commissioners to consider the proposed zoning text amendment of ZTA 2024 number 5, adopt a statement of consistency for the amendment, and authorize the chairman to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the county. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. We'll open the public hearing at this time. Mr. Smitherman, do we have anyone signed up for comment?
Yes, we do. The first speaker is Bud Ship.
Good morning, folks. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come up here and speak. Currently under the 10 by 10 porches, which we're currently building in our RV park in Swansboro, cost around $3,600. With 235 units, that comes to about $846,000. With 200 square feet, it's 1.5 million. With 300, it would go to just under 2.6. If you put the gazebo-style roofs and allow some shade for the folks that have campers there, it goes to 3.5. This is just in my park or my family's park. The confusing part of this is I called the tax department this morning. I do appraisals for Carter and Onslow County. If a person comes in and buys a camper that is already set up in a park, they had to have 2 appraisals. I am one person that does it, but any porch that is added on to a camper pays no taxes, yet they have to have a building permit to get this issued. We're leaving tens of millions of dollars just in porches throughout this county that nobody's paying no taxes on. So I think it's something that we could consider. The deck should be monitored by the owners and the managers of the parks, have to obtain permits. They know what's going on in their parks. But not listing them on the tax department or having no one to pay in addition for some of these different size decks is a bit confusing, especially if we could allow the larger size ones. Less than 5 miles away in Carter County, they're allowed 300 square foot porches. They can put a room in there. Decks are allowed. We're losing happy campers to Carter County. In my park, I have current phase 1, we're into phase 2 now. We have 14 park models, which is the cottage style, and there's 30 travel trailers. Travel trailers depreciate just like our automobiles. When I appraise park models, I've never appraised one that did not sell for more than what they paid for it from me or my competitors. So it kind of gets down to what we want. Do you want travel trailers? Do you want to promote it with smaller porches? Do you want something that increases in value? We have a mix, but I believe we could do a lot more if we have the larger porches. Does a 28 or 32-foot travel trailer need a 200-square-foot porch? We can decide. Park models on average are 38 to 42 feet long. It'd be nice if we could allow 300 square foot with a gazebo style to provide shade for these people. I think it's something to consider the size of the camper to the size of the porch. It doesn't look in proportion right when you put a 10 by 10 beside a 40-foot cottage. Rest and relaxation are what we are promoting. The population in North Carolina from 2015 to 2030 will double. So they're coming. I think everybody sees the growth from Boone to Bogue or wherever you go. We see a strong influx from Raleigh, Durham, Rocky Mount, Wilson, Kinston area from people coming in. We took an application from some people this weekend from Pennsylvania to put a cottage in. As I said, all park models appreciate, and it provides a much better campsite if you provide both to whatever the people can afford or what they want. But with no taxes paid, that's an enormous amount of money that the tax department is leaving on the table, which I don't quite understand. If I have a porch built at my home, I have to get the permit, and it adds to the value of my home, and whether it's connected or not. And further on, in NC, by the 2030s, we'll have 12 million folks in the state. It's the 7th most populated state in the nation, and they're coming. And I say, give them what they want or what they're willing to pay for. Some of the cottages that I sell are from $130 to $150. They fluctuate from around $90 to $130. So we can have more upscale places if we provide better amenities to them. And please consider the larger the camper, the bigger the porch or the shaded area. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Smitherman. Any?
We have one more speaker, Mr. Chairman, either Tyler or Taylor Ship.
He took the words out of my mouth. I think all right.
Okay, very good. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any others in the audience wanting to speak on this issue? All right. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at this time and move to commissioner discussion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. Sorry, I was a little slow. I didn't know Lisa was going to jump out there like that. So, Mr. Shipp, if you'll forgive me, I am going to disagree on the taxes part of things because I'd like to figure out how we can reduce our folks' taxes. But what I do agree with you and ask the board to consider is the 200, and I guess I would ask Mr. Metcalf where the 200 comes from. Is that an arbitrary number? or what drives that 200? And if we took Mr. Ship's advice, how would it affect us? Would it be a negative or a positive effect? Because I tend to agree with him on, can we make the opportunities to make Onslow County better, right, and make a nicer environment. And if he can do porches that, I would use the word proportional to what he's putting on site. How does that negatively or positively affect the county?
Absolutely. So in planning development as well as the whole county, right, we've tried to take a data-driven approach. So before this amendment was ever even put before the board, our staff researched 34 other jurisdictions. So we looked at every other coastal county in North Carolina. Then we looked at all of the municipalities in Onslow, Carteret County as well as Wilmington and Burgaw, right? So we took basically what our market region could be, north and south. And we looked across all 34 jurisdictions. There was only one jurisdiction that had a larger allowance than Onslow County, and that was the town of Cedar Point. They're the only ones that have a 300-foot allowance, and by our research, are deemed an outlier. 200 is the next highest individual, which we are tied for. So certainly, that's why we did not propose something higher than the 200, is because, the town of Cedar Point was the highest so far that we could find that regulate decks. So we went with, again, something that not only fit what our current standards have, which is the 10 and the 10, and simply just allowing flexibility for those owners, but also something that kept us, in kind of the median with a lot of the other entities that regulate it. There are several jurisdictions that simply just allow for only 100 square feet or 126 square feet. So
did you say some that aren't regulated?
There are some that don't have a standard at all. We reached out to several of those jurisdictions, and the response we got back was, we will figure it out when someone submits an application. So certainly they're not seeing the volume that Onslow County is. And so therefore, we thought it was the most reasonable approach was to kind of amend what we're currently doing. And as well, right, these decks cannot be attached to the camper at all. We've heard this from the Department of Insurance. They're not allowed to be. And so that's why they're required to get a permit, is because we're required to permit them. And as well, we wanted to have some sort of standard that was easy to enforce. What we have found when, individuals were putting covers on them and they were roofing them, they were highly more likely to attach them to the camper. So that's part of why we try to drive that away. Also, there'd be nothing to prohibit somebody from doing a temporary canopy.
So, Mr. Metcalf, my second part of my question is either negative or positive impacts to the county if we were to consider either a variable square footage or a higher maximum square footage.
In terms of positive or negatives with that, it'd be at the county's discretion. It'd be increased to built upon area in the county and increased stormwater. Obviously, I'm not the tax department and couldn't speak to any sort of tax value there. But it just would be more likely for individuals to attach them to their vehicles. And again, I say vehicles because campers are vehicles. I know we've heard the term cottages this morning. Those are park models. Park models are vehicles just the same as a travel trailer or a pull behind. They're all the same. They're all required to go through the DMV. So it's simply just at each individual's commissioner's discretion on what they see those positives could be. It's more built upon area. It is larger structures. And again, when you see these larger structures, it's becoming less of a conversation about a recreational use and more about people living there full time.
So, we've struggled with RV parks since I've been on this board. We have a lot of legacy RV parks that have become eyesores and difficult places. But I don't really see how a 200 or 300 square foot difference in the deck makes that much difference. I would tend to want to amend the amendment to say 300 foot instead of 200.
I would agree, or even if we could make it variable,
So you
proportional,
second?
I guess, yeah.
You second that motion?
I am.
We already got a motion.
So we got a motion and a
Vote on that
second.
one first.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we have to get
We have a
get the
motion
first
to
one out of
amend
the
the
way
motion.
first.
Okay.
So right now, we have a motion and a second. We're still in discussion. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify like what, like?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so.
So now I'll make a motion to amend.
Let me get this one done. That motion fails. So now we'll go to Mr. Bennett's motion.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, let me,
Bennett, if I might, before you make the motion, are you willing to consider a proportional square footage, or do you prefer 300?
it seems to me like that complicates things,
Okay,
would be my opinion there.
okay.
So if it's a maximum of 300, I mean, they can build a 100-foot deck if that's what they want.
Okay.
So my motion would be to amend the ARS standard to 300 instead of 400, 200, sorry.
Second.
Hey, Mr. Bennett, could I include in
Yes.
your motion and adopt a consistency statement
Yes,
in accordance with that? Is that included in your motion?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that included in your second? Thank you.
Guess I should read it.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by discussion. Yes, sorry, Lisa.
So how does that impact, well, first of all, just procedurally, it doesn't have to be going back to the planning board for their advisement because we're the final say. Okay.
Yes.
How do you see going to a 300 affecting us? Will that draw more people in to our county? I mean, will it benefit us by doing that, do you feel, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it just depends, right? You have some individuals who really are interested in a deck, and you have some that are not. Because as well, these parks are allowed also to have a patio of unregulated size. So you could have patios, as well as also there are park models built on porches, which is something we're also still trying to work through. Because once you add in the layer of the park models, it's a whole other different style of vehicle compared to the travel trailer, as well as also a different type of, constituent coming to the parks. There are regulations we have around the size of the lots, so certainly a 300 square foot would take up more of that area, and there would be less open space on each lot. So we could certainly look at what that ratio would look like comparatively, because right now those lots are designed with a 10 by 10 deck allowed with enough space for them to come in and out of.
And a follow-up question, contrary to what Mr. Davis says, and just basically, I'm all about, lowering tax rates as well when it's applicable. I'm also into fairness. And if you have a brick and mortar house and you have to pay taxes on what you've extended your property to be, how is that not right, to do for a vehicle?
It's all good.
No, it isn't. No, I just, that's a question
I
I feel
guess
like
we need to have a conversation with the tax assessor about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that's right for the rest of, homeowners to be,
Oh, I agree.
We're gonna hear about it.
Somebody should be paying property taxes on it.
exactly.
Well,
So,
Mr. Turner is sitting here with us. He would like to
Is that a-
address,
is there anything you could put toward this conversation?
come on up
Can
to
you
the
come on up?
microphone.
So to answer your question, if it's taxable, it is listed for tax purposes. I don't know the nature of the conversation that was had with one of my staff members this morning. I didn't speak, I did not have that conversation personally. The first thing to determine is who owns those decks and porches that are located in these RV parks. Is it the park owner or is it the tenant? That's the first thing that we have to determine. After that is what is the value, which can be somewhat subjective. But if if it is in the park and it is owned by the park owner, they are listed. From there, if it's not owned by the park owner, we have to track down who owns it and then determine the appropriate listing from there.
Does that answer
I
your
can see
question?
that as a
I know,
challenge.
I'm
That could be a
deferring to
challenge.
Royce, who has real estate knowledge more than I do, but I just,
I mean, but this is a conversation we can have another time,
Yeah.
actually. I don't think this is relevant to the
probably,
motion.
maybe
on the
not,
floor.
but, okay.
But to your point, there's a difference between attachment and unattached.
Right.
Is that correct?
Right. If it's not attached, it's personal property.
Right.
And personal property is you have to find out who actually
Right.
owns it before you can list it.
But that's taxable as well.
Because you have to list it
So-
to the
And then you got,
appropriate.
then you got to talk about who built it. Did the guy that had the trailer there before build it, or this
Yeah.
guy? I mean,
Well, I just think we should
that
talk
gets
about
into the weeds here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll approve whatever we
Point of
have.
order?
Yeah.
Is that the right term, point of order?
Yes.
yeah.
All right. Motion, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify.
What's the motion?
To go from 200 square feet to 300 square feet of
Motion is to
max on the,
amend the zoning ordinance to allow 300 square foot decks.
all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Motion carries. All right, I think that concludes our public hearings for this morning, and we'll move to the item that has been added to the agenda, the motion to approve resolution to adopt Onslow County compensation system. Do we need to
Motion
read?
to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. At this time, we will, do we just adjourn this meeting and go into closed session? No, we got to go to commissioner comments. My fault.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would
Yep.
suggest we do it at the end, and just for the public's benefit, when we go in closed session, we will come back into open session, but we will not be conducting any business. You're welcome to stay around when that time comes, but there won't be any action after closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Selms. Chair, or manager's comments? Mr. Smitherman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things I wanted to speak about today. One is how important the action you just took to adopt the resolution is to our competitiveness in the workforce. We have been working hard the last few years, 3 years, I would say, to bring our salaries up to a competitive place. We now have not only brought ourselves to a competitive place, but our new pay and class schedule should make us a market leader and an ability to recruit talent to our organization going forward. So I very much appreciate the effort that has taken and lots of people involved, and particularly folks in HR. We appreciate all that work. Also wanted just to point out for the public's sake that at the last few meetings, maybe 3, Carter has mentioned the planning board chair's comments at the end of the recommendation from the planning board. That is a result of the joint meeting you had with the planning board a few months ago, and part of the process changes we are making to improve communication between the two boards. So just wanted to point that out, and glad that that's been implemented, and hope everyone values that the chairperson of the planning board is providing remarks to the board regarding their deliberation. Finally, this Thursday will be the first set. We'll have 3 sittings of our all-employee meeting. We are bringing in all of our employees to talk about what we have done the past year, what we're going to do next year, the great things we're doing in our workplace, give them updates on changes to their benefit schedule and different things like that. But it's a great opportunity for us all to gather over 3 sittings on the 9th this week. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smitherman. So we'll open it up to commissioner comments. Who would like to go first?
I'll be happy to.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carper?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, the workshop that we just came out of, it's been a long day so far for us commissioners. We're earning our money. I was very excited to hear about the spotlight that's being put on communication, both, well, I should say all 3, internally with the organization, also with the commissioners, and then externally to the public, and how we're also looking at then receiving information from the public. I think communication is key And we've talked about it a lot, but I just really appreciate all the steps that you're taking, Angie, wherever she went to, with the strategic plan. Implementing those things means so much, and I think that's going to only benefit us. So that's really just thank you for all the work that you guys have done. Happy New Year to everyone, and thanks for coming out to the meeting today.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter. Next.
Okay, I'll go. Yeah, thanks to everybody who came to speak. I wanted to note one item on the consent agenda that we didn't talk about. It was a $28,000 grant to clear streams in Onslow County. In the last several years, we've cleared over 100,000 feet of streams in Onslow County. I think Commissioner Padgett probably did a lot of those himself. But we added another $28,000 to that to clear some more streams. That's important to keep us from flooding in Onslow County as best we can. Also, want to mention, I think 2025 is going to be, you're going to hear a lot of talk about government efficiency, maybe. And I don't think it would be, we as commissioners, we try all the time to make sure that our government is running as efficiently as we possibly can, but I don't think it would be a terrible idea to think about bringing in a couple of local business people, let them take a look at our works, at our government, processes, and see if there's some suggestions about how we can be more efficient. We don't have to call them a department, but something that I think we ought to take a look at. Maybe some outside eyes on our government processes would be helpful. So that's all I've got today. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett.
I would like to say thank you so much for coming and thank for the speakers that spoke. We're looking at a lot of things on this board, as you well know, and we do our very best to what's in the best interest of Onslow County, and we'll continue to do that. Might not all agree, but we try to agree on what's good for everyone, not just a few. So thank you so much for coming. Hope you have a good year, and we're looking forward to a good year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Padgett. Commissioner Davis?
Sure. Mr. Phil, thank you for coming and speaking on behalf of One Place. I do think that's going to be a tough one, but I do support One Place, and I don't mind saying that publicly. I feel like we really need to get some critical information from the Sheriff Department and from One Place as well in order to perhaps convince the board to do some serious thinking about how we support One Place. And as you said, I do believe it's generational and it will make an impact. Ms. Ari, thank you. Your intellect and your ability to squeeze words into 5 minutes, I love it. But I love listening to you because you really put a lot of thought into what you say. Workforce salaries and wages, again, to the leadership of Mr. Smitherman and your staff for getting that done. I think that was very critical. So thank you for that. Ms. Rose, I want to say thank you for all the work you do. All my emails that I send you and phone calls, and you always answer with a smile and results. So thank you for what you do for our county. I appreciate you. And then I got to be contrary with my friend here, Miss Lisa, but I do want us to be very careful when it comes to taxes. I think we need to look at how we can reduce our taxes, how we can reduce our fees. With the population growth that we have in Onslow County, I believe that's something that's achievable. So that's my take on that. And yes, you are correct. We do need to be fair across the board, though, if we are going to do that. So, Mr. Shipp, thank you for bringing those valid points before us and giving us something to discuss. And I like it when we can discuss real information and even make changes on the fly. So thank you for that. And I know the board's got a gentleman's agreement of 5 minutes, so I'm probably getting close, so I'll stop.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Commissioner Buchanan?
Thank you. I want to thank the board's vision for the market analysis for our employees. We've talked about this for the last 4 or 5 months, working very hard on this. Thank the staff for doing that. But the key to it is trying to keep our good employees. And the only way to keep good employees is paying them what the market analysis is. And that's what we just done. That's what we just passed in this resolution. And I'm very proud of this board for doing that, very proud of the staff for what they've done for us, and thank everybody for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Vice Chairman?
Just a couple things. Richard Gabbert's not here from Animal Control. I think he does a wonderful job. He responded to something, kind of an emergency last week in reference to an abandoned dog. It was pretty gross per se, is the way they treated this dog. And I want to commend him and his staff, but I also want to say this about animal control. There are a lot of people on Facebook and social media that have no bloody idea what they're talking about. They really don't, because they don't ask the questions. They're making false accusations against a lack of response by animal control. In the last 2 weeks, they've taken in over 70 animals. And they're making comments on Facebook like they're not taking any animals, and they're causing panic with a bunch of people out there that are animal lovers. I, for one, am an animal lover. But, you know, before you go criticizing Richard Gabbert and animal control, do your research. There's something that they invented many years ago called a telephone. Pick it up and call somebody. Call me, and I'll straighten you up. I get tired of people making these guesses and these innuendos and these assumptions that someone's not doing their job because they haven't done their due diligence to research and ask the right questions, okay? So please, if you're out there, and if you see Richard Gabbert and his staff of people that work in animal control, give them the kudos that they deserve. These guys are working hours and hours on call. They're putting it out there, and they've got a terrible job. It's been recently, for the last couple of weeks, that several issues came up that he responded to. And in fact, the last issue that I called him immediately, he already knew. And he was already in the process of responding when people are saying that they're not responding. Check your facts, folks. And that's kind of a segue into, that's what we're doing here as the commissioners, is using social media for you to get out there and check and see what's going on in your county government. Our communications department is second to none, and they're doing their job. And you know, when I hear people they're not informed, well, you're not looking, you're not asking, you're not asking the right questions. Because this is my 8th year, going on my 9th year as a commissioner. It's the same thing. And we've had the same apparatuses that are up, and they're improved. I can't help you if you don't do the research and don't have the facts. And when you call me in the middle of the night screaming at me and screaming in my ear about something that is absolutely untrue, I'll be honest with you, it gets annoying, okay? If you want to call, do your research, pick up the phone, and call like an adult and ask me a question. And any of these commissioners that are sitting on this board will give you a straight-up answer. And if we don't know, we will find the answer out for you. So anyway, my kudos to Animal Control and Gabbert. I hope you're listening. There was a post that was made prior to him responding to this, and I told him to send me the copy of the post so I can blast it on social media, and he refused to send it to me because it's okay, Commissioner. We know what we're doing. I said, look, this is the kind of stuff that aggravates me when they don't know the truth about you and making lies up about our county employees. So, Richard, if you're listening out there, if you're not here, I didn't listen to you. So I'm just letting you know that you're doing a great job, and I just wanted everybody to understand that. They're very capable people to be reached. You can reach the county manager, you can reach the assistant county manager, you can reach our clerk, you can reach anybody in the department, and guess what? You can reach any one of these commissioners. Send us an email, or send us a text, or call us. All our numbers are public. And I can guarantee you, every one of these commissioners that sit up here have answered phone calls in the middle of the night. Okay? Takes a phone call. But it's not the efforts of the commissioner to reach out to you. It's your effort to reach out to us to make us aware if there's a problem. Plain and simple. And I say that because this has been bugging me for the last 8 years. And to be honest with you, I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of people just making assumptions. So again, Richard, congratulations for a great job. I want to congratulate the staff. We had a great workshop this morning. Very professional, very detailed. I really love the direction that our community or our department's going on, and I just want to say keep up the good work. It's outstanding, David, to you and your staff, and I'm really proud to be a part of Onslow County. Other than that, thank you for coming. I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Appreciate the speakers coming out this morning and all the work that's been taking place by county and our county workers, our leadership. Welcome to 2025. We're glad we're here. We're glad we're in a good place, and we are glad this is a great community to live, work, and raise a family. With that being said, we will now go into closed session, and we'll do that outside of this, and we will return to open, but we will not return in here to do that.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Motion to go into close?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're going. Thank you all.